On this night 40 years ago, the crew of Apollo 11 was preparing to land on the moon the next day. Many of their spacecraft systems were tested near Las Cruces, New Mexico. Now the people of NASA's White Sands test facility are doing it again, this time for the spacecraft that will replace the space shuttle and eventually take us back to the moon. News 13's Bob Martin has the story.
In the early 60s, Apollo hardware poured into a new NASA site at White Sands Missile Range. The race to the moon was on, and there were high expectations.
So we worked 24/7, a lot of overtime, a lot of pressure getting the test off, and we had great people, and they were really dedicated.
A rocket tower was bolted to the Apollo command module so in an emergency, the tower could fire and carry the crew to safety. At White Sands, unmanned Apollo capsules were put on boosters and launched to verify the escape towers would propel crews away from any disasters. Other Apollo systems would be tested here, including motors for the lunar landers. Space shuttle systems were tested too. The sprawling NASA White Sands facility used all of its many test chambers and laboratories. Now, the shuttle's replacement, Constellation, which borrows a lot of Apollo's design, must prove its escape system. A new launch facility is going up at White Sands, and new capsules, much larger than Apollo and called Orions, will test a new escape tower.
Which will take a roughly 20,000-pound capsule downrange about 0.7 nautical miles in 2.5 seconds. A city bus going a mile downrange in 2.5 seconds.
Control motors for Constellation's boosters were tested here. To save money and time, NASA took motors off old nuclear missiles, and White Sands staff made sure they work right. NASA White Sands is also set to test rocket motors for the next lunar lander, called Altair. The moon will be used to prove systems that will later take humans to Mars. NASA wants to manufacture methane fuel on Mars for trips back to Earth, but methane has not been used before. So NASA White Sands is testing methane fuel designs Altair can try out at the moon.
To build reliability and technology readiness levels so that we can comfortably or reliably bring a crew back.
Constellation spacecraft will face micrometeorites and space junk that travel at miles per second. NASA White Sands uses big guns to blast simulated space debris at layers of metals and composites designed to protect spacecraft.
Ordering the space distance between the various layers, what's in between those layers makes a difference. When a projectile impacts the first layer, it slows down significantly.
Not every test can be done with computers. Some take human beings. NASA's New Mexico facility is home to the odor panel. Volunteers who have certified noses that must smell and approve anything that goes inside any spacecraft.
Whether they're in a confined space. Okay, you can't roll down the window or you can't open up your visor if there's something that's making you ill.
At NASA White Sands, an Apollo command module sits out in the rain. An old Apollo lunar module still rests in a hangar. Those who worked on Apollo here say that the return to some of those design concepts has some worthy advantages. They sometimes point that out to younger folks working on Constellation.
They don't like to hear that. They think this is really a totally different program. And I guess, you know, it is going to be bigger than the Saturn V.
Bob Martin, KRQE News 13, near Las Cruces.
At its Apollo peak, NASA's White Sands test facility had about 1,200 employees. Today it employs about 650 people.